Welcome to the Hockey Writers Prospect Corner, a show with our top prospects writing crew, bringing you the latest news, analysis, scouting reports, mocks, rankings, and much more. From the World Juniors to the NHL Draft floor, from the farm to the NHL, our team covers everything that happens in the world of prospects. So sit back, grab a notebook, and get ready for Prospect Corner.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Prospect Corner presented by the Hockey Writers. Today, we're going to be looking at Peter's latest draft rankings, the top 64. He had a top 32 out a long time ago, actually, now. But he just put one out, what was it, a week ago?
A week today, yes.
Yeah, so there we go, a week ago. But I hope you guys have checked that out, but we're going to go through that. And I am your host, Matthew Zator, and as always, I am joined in by Peter Baracchini and Dayton Reimer. Also got a new panelist, Tyson McKay. Welcome, Tyson. How's it going?
It's going pretty good. Thanks for having me. It's nice to be on here, talk some prospects.
Yeah, for sure. You're going to be at the Top Prospects Game coming up this week, so we'll talk a little bit about that in the second half of the show. But Dayton, how's it going?
Well, it's not too bad. Yeah, had a kind of a quiet day, so nothing to complain about.
Awesome.
Yeah,
and finally, Peter, how's it going?
Yeah, doing great. I know we're talking about prospects, but I actually have something to look forward to with the Maple Leafs actually winning a game and not blowing a multi-goal lead. So things are looking great on my end.
Well, I just had the Canucks beat the Maple Leafs, so that was a good game.
Okay, yeah, that was a playoff-like game. I'm going to say that right now.
Yeah. Well, hopefully, it'd be pretty cool to have a all-Canadian Stanley Cup final. That'd be pretty awesome. Could happen. We'll see. But let's get back to prospects and let's talk about your draft rankings, Peter. And like I say, it's been a while. It's been expanded to a top 64 now. So quickly go over your top 5 for us here.
Yeah, my top 5 is, no surprise, Macklin Celebrini, number 1 from Boston University. And this is where things get a little interesting. 2, I have Sam Dickinson from the London Knights. 3, Caden Lindstrom from the Medicine Hat Tigers. Ivan Demidov from SKA St. Petersburg, going back and forth between KHL, MHL. But MHL team is SKA 1946 St. Petersburg. I'm not going to be too long-winded about that. And 5, Berkeley Canton from the Spokane Chiefs.
It's a solid top 5. That's a big change because Cole Eisman was your number 2 in the top 32. He has dropped. He is not in your top 5 to start. I'll start with you, Tyson. Looking at this top 5, what do you think about it? Changes from the last one. Is this what you'd be kind of expecting for a top 5?
I think it's pretty solid, actually. I think I agree with some of the movement there a lot more than some other people would. There's one name probably that I would have included up in the top 5, and that is Lashunov. We'll probably talk about him a little bit later on at some point, I'm sure. But overall, pretty solid. Yeah, I think I'm right there with Yzerman dropping a little bit. I know he's still a lot of people's, solid number 2 or definitely in their top 5. But yeah, he's a polarizing player to me, and I'm on the negative side of that polarizing. For most people seem to be in love with him for his shot and stuff like that. But I think the top 5 that Peter's put together is a lot more solid, a lot more upside to a lot of those players, more well-rounded than some of the other players that some people like to take shots at. And yeah, I think it's hard to argue with the top 5 that's got that kind of skill in it. It's pretty solid.
All right, Dayton, what do you think about this top 5?
I mostly agree with Tyson there. It's a really solid 5. I'm surprised at Dickinson in second, but after talking with you last week, less surprised. He's a great defender. I don't know if he'd be my top 1, but I think it's splitting hairs when you're talking the top defender, I think, in this draft. So yeah, cool. I really like that Lindstrom is 3rd. being a guy who grew up in Medicine Hat, I'm always excited to see Tigers take over the top of the draft. And he's really been climbing up everyone's list, which has been really nice to see. So maybe he can keep climbing. I don't know if he'll get much higher than that, but yeah, third, that'd be super cool.
Yeah, he'd have to take over one or two. I don't know if that's happening. I don't think Celebrini's getting dethroned. We talked about him last episode about if he's the number one. Well, for Peter, he is, and for a lot of people, he still is. I like the top five too. I Dickinson, like we said in the last episode, he's much better than, I think, a more well-rounded defender than a lot of the other guys. Some of them are more offensive, some more defense. But he's both. He can do everything. Too bad he wasn't a right-hand shot, because I think he'd be the full package then of one of those. But left-hander doesn't really. I mean, he's still going to be a really good defenseman. Doesn't matter if he's. There's still quite a few good right-handers down the line in this draft too. So yeah, solid top five. I like Kane Lindstrom up that high as well. So we'll see if he goes higher. I don't know if he will. We'll see.
It's mostly wishful thinking. I don't think he'll go third. Bob McKenzie just put out his list. I believe that was today.
Yes.
And he is also pretty high on Lindstrom, but I don't think that's gonna stay. I hope it does, but
yeah. Well, he's been impressive. I think he's definitely worthy of being in that top three on the third spot there. All right, Peter, round us off your top 10 here.
So this one was a little difficult, even more so than the top five. At 6, currently it's Konsta Helenius. He looked really good at the World Juniors. 7 is Anton Soyaev, who's just been rising up the charts as an unknown defender at the beginning of the season, and he's currently a top 10 prospect right now. Zeev William is another player that I really liked at 8. Just dominating the collegiate scene for University of Denver right now. Cole Iserman at number 9. This is where the discussion will get in as to where he's going to be. And at number 10 is Michael Brandsteg Nygaard from Mora of the Hockey Allsvenskan.
Yeah, right off the bat, I like Brandsteg Nygaard at 10. He's going to end up being one of those, I think, a versatile guy that can go up into your top 6. He can play in the bottom 6. I love players like that you can just throw around and be a Swiss Army knife type player. There's a few guys in the NHL right now that I really are impressed with, and I think he's going to end up being one of those. I want to say like a Sam Lafferty type player where he can go all over the place and score goals and still playing the bottom 6 and be a standout player too. All right, I'll start with you, Dayton. Now, what do you think of this rest of this top 10 of Peter's here?
Yeah, no, I think it's pretty good. Again, not a lot to say. I agree with, I think, everything. I'm a little higher on Iserman than you are, I think. I don't know. I can't ignore how good of a goal scorer he is. Like, that's a kid who just knows how to put the puck in the net. And yes, there are problems with the rest of his game, but I would argue that those can be coached. And a couple of years in collegiate system in the NCAA, that should be sort of, kind of fixed, I would assume. If it's not, then yeah, then you got bigger problems. But to me, he's a bit closer to the top 5 still. We'll see how the rest of the season goes. But yeah, the rest of them, fantastic. Brandsteg Nygaard, he's really interesting. Saleev, also an interesting guy. Helenius, yeah, I think he's a top 10 guy, maybe not top 5. So
yeah, there you go. Tyson, what do you think of the rest of this top 10?
Pretty solid, yeah. I'm with you guys. I love to see Brandsteg Nygaard up in that top 10. A little Norwegian action. I think he's easily primed to become the highest ever drafted Norwegian player, which fantastic to see players coming from different areas. I don't know if he goes in the top 10. I think he definitely has a skill too. But I think for me, yeah, the only guy missing in that top 10 is Lashunov, and he's one of those players that I've seen a lot of people that are really high on him, and I've seen some people that are a little bit lower on him. But for me, there's really probably 4 defensemen, maybe 5 defensemen in this draft that are, you're just kind of splitting hairs on which ones, it's what style of defense you like to see, is where you order those 5. And for me, Lishunov is a little bit higher. I think I'm completely opposite of Dayton on Yzerman. He's a great goal scorer, but I'm not much of a risk taker, and I think you're taking a pretty big risk if you take Yzerman. The reward is massive there. If he turns out he's, you're talking like he's probably going to be able to score like Matthews or Patrick Kane or one of those, maybe more along the Patrick Kane line where he doesn't do a whole lot else except score. But great player. There's definitely skill there. Not a risk taker, so I'd probably go with some safer options before I went for Yzerman. But I can definitely see why a lot of people are super high on him. The skill is fantastic at putting the puck on the net, which at the end of the day, that's what you really need. So, overall, solid top 10.
Yeah, one thing about Yzerman, like we've said on the show before, is that he is one-dimensional right now, and that's I think he can probably round that out. But right now, he's got to figure out other ways to score without just his shot, and that you can get by with it, but to be a full, really dangerous top line player, you can't be, because people can take away your shot. I mean, he's just got to figure that out. But he's young, he'll be able to do it. All right, well, let's talk about some risers. I mean, we already have a few that are obvious risers. Peter, what guy has risen the most for you from your last rankings here?
So much as I want to talk about Caden Lindstrom, he was 19th for me in my preseason rankings, number 3 right now. Seems like too easy just because he just plays such a dominant game, and he's such I'm going to say this. He's a bully on the ice with his size and his ability to get to the middle of the ice with a shot. Playmaking is underrated. But I'm going to talk about Zeev Buium. I had him ranked 30th at the beginning of the season. I mean, you could call it I'm not even going to call it recency bias. You see it in his game with his mobility, his smarts, his ability knowing when to shoot, and the smart reads when he has the puck, the ability to walk the line. It's on full display in the NCAA level. We got a good taste of it. If you don't watch a lot of college hockey at the World Juniors, he was very smart in that regard, and he was very relied upon heavily for Team USA. It's been, a really great season and a great story for him to shoot up that high, to get into my top 10. There's obviously you're going to see some flaws. Maybe he does take a little bit of too many risks. Maybe he does get a little bit overzealous with the puck, but he doesn't put himself in a bad spot often, or even his teammates in a bad spot. He's very smart with his decision making, and that's a big reason why he moves up as far as high as he did from 30 all the way up into my top 10.
Yeah, that's a massive jump. I mean, he had such a great World Juniors, and that's, like you said, not the only reason he rose, but it is one of them. He was, like, in the gold medal game, was really solid for a draft eligible to be in that type of a pressure packed situation and be really good. That's big for me. That very mature defender. So yeah, he definitely is worthy of being rising up that much in my mind as well. All right, Tyson, who do you see on this list as a big riser for you from Peter's list here?
I will take the opportunity to talk about Caden Lindstrom just because I love watching him. He's one of those rare guys that he's got size, he's got speed, he's got skill. He's one of those players that, you just like, you can see every NHL GM just kind of start to drool a little bit when they start thinking about him, just because he's going to be an impact player in the NHL. You're talking, he's like 6'4", over 215 pounds, I think now, and he's got the skills of someone that just should not be that size. He's got amazing shot, great with the puck, great on the boards. Defensive side is solid there. Some little bit coaching, some areas where he could probably use some stuff. But I mean, for a 17-year-old, he is, modern day power forward is great way I've seen him described, and he seems like he's going to be every bit of it. So I can see where at the beginning of the season people were a little bit more hesitant to put him up there, but his play this season has been, he deserves every ranking that he's in that top 5. So yeah.
Yeah, well, we love Caden Lindstrom on the show. I think it was one of our first guys we mentioned when we started talking about this draft.
Yep.
So
Even
definitely
dating back to last year.
Yes, yeah, that's right. That's right. We did mention him last season as well. So yeah, he's been on our on our minds for quite a while. All right, Dayton, who do you got as a riser that you kind of want to point out here?
One name that keeps jumping out to me on all of the rankings that I look at is Liam Greentree. And on your preseason top 32, he was 29th. He is, where is it here? He jumped up quite a bit anyways.
He's 17.
Yeah.
17. Yeah. So that's a pretty decent rise. Yeah, he's been pretty good with the Windsor Spitfires, already the captain as an 18-year-old. He has 57 points in 39 games, 24 of those are goals. And on a pretty decent Spitfires team, I think. I'm not in the OHL, so I'm not as up to date on that. Yeah, I mean, he's a leading scorer, leading goal scorer points. That's a kid that I'm gonna keep my eye on as we keep going forward, because he's steadily crept up, and very few people seem to be talking about him. So I like that he is jumping up on your list.
Yeah, it's over 10 spots there. So that's a pretty big jump for sure. The one thing I was going to point out Ziv Bouillon as well, because I saw that was a massive jump for a guy that was close to the second round in your first rankings there, yeah. And now he's in the top 10. So that's a massive thing. And the thing is, he's in NCAA too, and that for a teenager to be in the NCAA now before his draft is big for me, and actually playing well. And then we already mentioned the World Juniors, because he just seems like maybe a little ahead of himself for development already. And for a defenseman, that's big, because we all know how much more time it takes for defensemen to develop. So he may be a pretty quick, depending on, if he stays in the university for his full time, which he may. So we'll see. Okay, the other side, and we have to talk about fallers, because there were a few. We've already talked about Yzerman. That's a not a really massive one. He did fall out of the top 5, but Dayton, who do you see as a big faller on this list here?
Henry Muse is really dropping on everyone's lists, it seems. Peter, you're no different. I don't remember seeing him in your first round. Unless
he was in my top 10, actually.
Is he in your top 10?
In the my preseason rankings, he was in my top 10. Yes,
that's what I'm referring to. Yeah, he's 7th in your preseason, and then in the one right now, he is 34th. So once again, I'm not super up on the OHL guys. I've been doing after last week we talked about European guys, and I said I didn't know a lot of the names. I did my homework, but still need to do my OHL homework. Like, he has everything that you would want. He's over almost a point per game in Ottawa. He is a right shot, but there's just been too many other defensemen who have really passed him by. And I don't know if I would have dropped him that much, but he's falling all over the place. So that's an interesting drop.
Yeah, it falling from the first round, high in the first round, to into the early second round. That is a pretty big drop off. But it could also be there's also some other guys, and they fall because other guys rise. I mean, that's just how it goes, right? So guys that has just natural. But yeah, that's a pretty big drop. All right, Tyson, who do you want to highlight as a faller in this list here?
One player that coming into the season I was looking at as potential top 10 was Beckett Senek. He's looked like one of those players that had a massive first year in the OHL. He looked like he was potentially gonna take off and be a top 10 pick, and he hasn't fallen too far for a lot of people. He's kind of still in that late first round, but I think just compared to what the original thought was heading into this season, he seems like he's kind of leveled out a little bit. He hasn't continued that same exponential growth that I think everyone kind of hoped that he would. He seemed like he had some really good skill to go along with, like he had some size too, right? He's I think 6'2", around that 180 mark.
He shot
right
up,
shot.
yep.
Yeah, he got some good size to go along with his skill, and he just really hasn't put it to use. And maybe it's just a situation where he shot up super quick and he hasn't really figured out how to put that into use yet. But someone that I thought was had destined for top 10, and now looks like he'll probably go somewhere later in the first round.
Yeah, that's I know we've talked about Seneca before as well, and that is, I mean, he'll probably still be a first rounder, I think, but we'll see how far in the first round. My one is Cole Hudson, and I from 17 in your pre one and the last ones to 57th, around where his brother went, I believe.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I wouldn't be surprised if he falls into that, because again, size, and we all know what Lane Hudson's doing right now. I think Cole Hudson could end up being that too, getting drafted later, but ending up being a really solid prospect. So, but seeing that big of a drop off from the mid first round all the way to the second round, and not even the early second round, this is like towards the middle of the second round, maybe is, yeah, I get it why he's dropped, because he has kind of fallen off his offensive production, but I don't like him being in the second round. Hey, yeah, so that's a pretty big drop off there. Okay, let's move on to, these are be some quick fire ones. Peter, I'll start with you. Who needs to increase their stock the most before the next rankings? Who needs to kind of step it up to get noticed a bit more?
Before I get into it, I just want to give a quick reasoning why Seneca and Muse dropped. Muse, it was because there are some games where he's like one of the best defenders out there, and other games where he's not. So the game-to-game consistency for Muse is why he's dropped. Seneca, yeah, the size, he shot up, but at the same time, he really hasn't quite put that together. And there are games where he's not using his size to his advantage. Would like to see a little bit more about that, despite me being a big fan of his. I am going to say Henry Muse is a guy that needs to increase his stock a little bit more, because he does have said potential. He does have the puck mobility. He was fantastic at the Helmut Gretzky Cup, but that's why you don't base it off of just one, junior tournament or one major tournament. That's why we have a full season of this. There are times where at the beginning of the season, Muse was starting to look like that, but then he kind of tailed off. So if he's able to have that game-to-game consistency where he's not, second guessing himself, not being as, dynamic or very effective with his puck mobility, as he is compared to other games, I think he would definitely still be in that first round consideration. He definitely has the size, the smarts, and the offensive game. It's just now he just needs to package it and get that consistency a little bit better.
Yeah, we'll see what he does. I mean, between rankings, we already see different jumps. I'm sure we're going to see it again. All right, Dayton, who do you think needs to kind of step it up before the next rankings here?
I don't know if mine is going to be a bit of a hot take here, but I've mentioned him before, and in what I've seen of him, I am disappointed, and I don't get why everyone's so high on him. Carter Yakimchuk. So I like, Peter, where you put him. You put him 25th on your latest list. He was 21 on your first top 32. He's somebody who, he puts up the points, but where's the defense? He's a defenseman. He needs to be more important for a very young Calgary Hitmen team. And I think he could really start to drop if he doesn't really round out his game for the rest of this year. Yeah, he's got the size. I think he's a right-handed shot.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So like he has the right things, but does he have the right talent?
Hmm.
If that makes sense. Kind of going back to an earlier thing we mentioned. With Yzerman, I would totally take that risk. He's a great goal scorer, and you can build up the rest because he's a forward. A
Yeah.
forward is somebody who sometimes they're a little bit more one-dimensional. And if you have a defenseman who's one-dimensional, you want it to be on the defensive side. You can only have so many Erik Karlssons, right? Someone who really is good at, moving the play forward and putting the puck in the net. Cool. You need to be able to get back too. And so that is somebody I'm keeping my eye on. I want him to be a top guy. Being out west here, I'm always rooting for the Western kids, but I don't see it yet, and I hope I do.
I'm of the opposite. I take the high-end offensive guy because you can teach the defense, at least in my mind, that because like Quinn Hughes, you draft him because he's great offensively. He can develop that defensive game he has. But I mean, I get where you're coming from too, because you can't all be offense. You've got to be able to learn the defense. Sometimes some of these guys don't know how to even learn the defense. That's the problem. But yeah, he definitely does have to kind of round that out. And finally, Tyson, who you got as someone that needs to kind of step it up here?
I've got someone a little later half the first round. I'm going with Maxime Messé from the QMJHL. He seems to be everyone's top prospect coming out of the QMJHL, and I've watched quite a few of his games now, being over in the Q area myself, and I think his skating is holding him back drastically. He is, not to rip on the kid, but he's a really poor skater. He's well under NHL average at this point, and there's been a couple games now where I've watched him and I've been just disappointed with what is supposed to be a lot of people's top pick coming out of the queue. And I think if he is unable to kind of generate and think the game a little bit better with his pace, I don't think he goes in the first round, which will be sad for the queue. I know there's a lot of people that think the queue is a little bit weaker than the WHL and the OHL, and unfortunately this season it kind of looks like it is, especially whenever your top prospect is kind of struggling to maintain even that first round status. So I really hope he has some great areas to his game where he can be super deadly in scoring points, but there are also times where if you're looking at a game that's the quick up and down, back and forth kind of game, he just kind of gets lost in that middle ground where he's not really able to get back in defense. He's not really able to cherry pick up in the offensive zone, and he just kind of ends up just looking foolish in the middle of the ice trying to get back and forth in time. So I think he needs to step it up a little if he wants to stay up in that first round.
Yeah, he's 29th on Peter's latest rankings here, so just at the end of the first round. So he could definitely drop into the second. Wouldn't be bad. I think if a team can get him in the second round, that's pretty good. But yeah, I agree. I think there's a lot of season left, so we'll see how these guys do in the next half here. Okay, well, before we move on to the second half of the show, I just want to give you guys a chance to shout out anyone else you wanted in this on this list, the top 64. I'll start with you, Dayton. Who else do you want to give a shout out to for everyone to kind of keep an eye on before the next rankings?
Yeah, I mentioned him last time because I liked his name, and then I did more research and I like more of his game. And that rhymed, and I'm sorry. Melvin Fernström from Sweden. He's got a lot of points. I think second most goals in the junior 20 in Sweden, and has started to make some appearances in the Swedish Hockey League. And so I'm really interested to see how he continues for the rest of the season.
For sure. Yeah, keep an eye on him. Tyson, who do you got? Kind of everyone should keep an eye on.
I've been calling for people to pay attention to Eric Smateko. He's an honorable mention on Peter's list, but I'm gonna keep banging the drum for him. 6'4", over 200 pounds. He's got a wicked shot, net front presence. I really like his game. I think some team is going to be really happy to get him probably in the third round if he falls here, but I think he should go in the second. I think he's got the skills there, and I see no reason why he shouldn't be in the second round.
Yeah, we'll see where he is in the next one. And finally, Peter, who do you want to kind of shout out on your rankings here that we haven't talked about yet?
See, I know we kind of talked about him last week or even before, but it's hard not to have him in here or even potentially be a first rounder because he did make Bob McKenzie's first round, and that's Dean Latorno from St. Andrews College. The sheer power and strength that this guy has is absolutely phenomenal with his shooting. The ability to just bully his way to the middle of the ice is absolutely phenomenal what he can do. Um, in my second round right now, but he's definitely a name that could even rise further up if he continues the way that he's playing right now.
That's a good one. I want to mention a couple Edmonton Oil Kings, Adam Jecko and Cole Baudouin. They're 35-36. Or not Cole, Edmonton Oil Kings and Perry Colts. Both guys that Baudouin and Jecko, 35-36. Jecko's been really good for the Oil Kings. I've seen different recaps of him, and his name keeps coming up. So Jacko's one. I thought Baudouin was on the same, but I'm between two teams that we cover, the Hockey Writers here, and I read them. They kind of mesh together. But yeah, Jacko's a one to kind of keep an eye on. He's in the second round or early second round in your rankings here. All right. Well, before we move on to our second half of the show, we're going to talk about Top Prospects Game and then the Calder race quickly. But before we do that, got to mention our Substack here at the Hockey Writers. We have recently expanded our content into the Substack to every NHL team, as well as one to our NHL Draft and Prospects content. Sign up to get all of our best prospect articles at multiple times per week, and that's run by Dayton. There's a bunch of fun stuff for just the free version. We also got the premium tier. There's a few articles I know Dayton's put out already. There's articles, mailbags, interviews, bunch of different things kind of planned throughout our draft coverage. So take a look at that. We got a discount coming out, a 24% discount. It gets up to I think it's February 3rd it goes to, but make sure you keep an eye out for that too. So lots of fun stuff with the Substack. Okay, well, let's talk quickly about the Top Prospects games. I know Tyson will be there covering it for the Hockey Writers, and we will have him back on, of course, right after it to see reaction on it. I'll start with you, Tyson. I know a lot of these players, we may have mentioned them already, but who are you kind of keeping an eye out in the Top Prospects game for?
It's hard to pick some, right? Because they're all so good. I mean, there's some really good pair of teams that they're going to be putting together at this game, but I think they highlighted a couple with who they made captains, and Sam Dickinson and Berkeley Catton. Those are two players that are definitely going to keep an eye on. It's a couple goaltenders that I'm super excited to watch, to see, what kind of skills they've got. Carter George and Ryerson Leanders, I think, are two goaltenders that are probably going to be right up there at any team that's looking to take a goaltender. Probably not first round, but in that second, third round area, once one team takes a goaltender, they usually tend to come off the list pretty quick. So we'll see how they can handle the firepower that comes with the packed teams. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see how after the practices tomorrow, or on Tuesday, whenever this comes out, it'll be well past, I'm sure, but we'll see what the lines end up looking like. Kind of get a better feel for what kind of different players get put together and what kind of lines they end up looking like. It's always interesting whenever you get all these different players from across the entire country and you stick them together, give them maybe 1.5 practices, and then just put them on the ice and see what they can do. So it's always a fun time.
Yeah, Top Prospects game was here in my backyard last year in Langley, so that was great. Now it's in, where is it? Halifax or
it's Moncton, New Brunswick.
Yeah, New Brunswick. So it's on the other side of the country, but yeah, it's always fun to watch that. Dayton, who are you kind of watching for at the Top Prospects game?
I agree with Tyson. I think watching the goalies is going to be really interesting because there hasn't really been a top goalie prospect that you could really point to. I know Peter listed Ryerson Linders as his top guy, I think middle of the second round.
Yeah.
And he's there, so definitely one to keep an eye on. But the other ones to see if they can sort of assert themselves as guys who are worthy of maybe first round consideration. I don't see it, but that's a good place to get that really close view of what's going on. As for forwards, I'm going to be watching TJ Ginla. There's a really interesting kid who keeps sneaking up the draft boards, like a lot of these Western kids. And last game he played, he put up a hat trick. So he's starting to hit his rhythm here.
Yeah.
And I'm wondering if he could sneak into the top 10 by the end of the season, if he can keep this going. He's got a lot of really good skills that, working to put them together. And if he can and showcase himself at that top prospects game, I think it's well within his possibility of getting there.
Kelowna Rocket too. Andrew Crystal's doing quite a bit. I don't know if they're playing on the same line, but they're both putting up points right now. All right, then finally, Peter, who you got tabbed to take a look at? Who are you watching at the Top Prospects game?
Yeah, specifically, I mean, there are a couple names. Charlie Elick is one. Obviously, we know he's got a strong defensive game. I just want to see how well he could go up against, among the best of the top junior names in Canada. I want to see how well he could dominate and be, very sound positionally, very strong structural game, being physical, being a guy that could block shots and get into the lanes. A lot of people may have him as a first rounder or early second. Depends on how you see or who you want in terms of that kind of player. But I think maybe, the production is starting to get a little bit better. Not great, but maybe there's some potential right there. But also two other names that, kind of jumped up and came out of nowhere. And that's Tarek Parasik and actually they're both on the same team. Tarek Parasik on Team White and Luke Misa as well. Both of these players had horrid starts to their seasons. Misa being a playmaker, Parasik with his goal scoring abilities may not be dynamic compared to Misa, but Parasik is very great with his IQ and being in the right position at the right time. Scouts want to see that. I want to see if he's able to continue to do that at this game as well. And even Luke Misa with his speed, his playmaking. I want to see if they can elevate their game a little bit more and actually catch the eyes and show that they are worthy of being, top names and not just, possible first rounders, but actual first rounders, because a lot of people do see them as that.
Yeah, the Top Prospects game is always one to kind of help increase your stock because so many scouts are there and they're all watching it. So yeah, definitely a good time to do that. Unfortunately, we won't see the projected first overall pick there because Macklin Celebrini is playing the NCAA. We saw Connor Bedard last season because he was playing the dub. So this year we won't see the first overall pick, unfortunately. So, but still fun to watch. Okay, let's move away from the junior leagues back to the NHL because we always got to talk about the Calder race. It's got a little bit more interesting. Connor Bedard's hurt right now with a broken jaw, still out of the lineup. So given an opportunity to some of the other rookies to kind of maybe catch up to him. I'll start with you, Dayton. Is he still the favorite for the Calder Trophy, even though he's not playing? I know he's still leading in points, but is he still the favorite for the Calder right now?
I think if the vote happens today, then yes, he's winning it. But if it happens within a week, I don't think his grip is that close or that secure on it anymore. He's got competition. There's a lot of really good rookies that have sort of been maybe not swept under the rug, but a little bit overshadowed by Bedard's great season. He's always been the favorite, and had he not got injured, then he would remain the favorite, and now he's going to have competition. To me, it's like the McDavid rookie year. He missed most of the season, I believe. That's already a long time ago. I remember that. But an amazing start, great points per game, didn't win Rookie of the Year because he just didn't have the games played.
Mm-hmm.
I could see that happening if Bedard is out for a long time, and with a broken jaw, I could see him being out for a while.
Yeah, and it's tough to rehab it too. So, Tyson, what do you think? Is he still the favorite right now, or is his hold kind of being a little bit not as strong right now?
That's a loaded question to ask someone that covers the Minnesota Wild. That's
Right. There's one guy we'll talk. I'm sure you're going to mention him in the next one.
Bedard, yeah, I mean, he's a generational talent, right? It's hard to say that what he's done to this point will not get him the Calder Trophy, but Brock Faber is absolutely blowing everybody's expectations of him out of the water, and he has gone from looking like, a solid, second line defender to all of a sudden he's looking like the Minnesota Wild's future number one defenseman for a long time. He's not only killing it in the defensive zone, which is extremely difficult to do for a rookie defenseman to come in, and he played 0 games basically in the AHL. I don't think he even played a game in the AHL. He came right in after his season ended in college, jumped right into the NHL and started defending like he was, a 10-year veteran. And now he's putting the points up as well. He's currently on pace for 50 points in his rookie season, which puts him right up there with guys like Cale Makar, Quinn Hughes, and some of the bigger names that just he really shouldn't be up there with them based on all the projections when he was younger. But I don't think that he has what it takes to overcome Bedard, just because a lot of people don't put as much stock into defensemen when it comes to stuff like that, right? They like to see the points, they like to see the goals, and they like to see some flash and skill, and that's Bedard, right? Mm-hmm. And he deserves it. But I think it is more exciting for Wild fans to even see that Faber is making a push and being mentioned as, having the potential to take votes away from Bedard. Yeah. I think that's a fantastic thing to accomplish whenever you're talking about someone like Bedard. So yeah, fantastic to see.
Yeah, Faber's always been one of my favorites. I've mentioned it multiple times that whenever I had trade things with the LA Kings, I was like, Brock Faber has to be in the deal. Ended up being traded to the Minnesota Wild, but at the time when they were talking about he could be traded, I always had him in packages with him coming back to the Canucks. So unfortunately, it didn't happen. All right, Peter, what do you think? Is Bedard still the favorite, and who are you kind of eyeing that could potentially push him with the injury here?
Yeah, he is definitely still the favorite. And even as the season progresses, like in the next weeks leading up to his possible return, I think he may still be the favorite. I think whoever's going to be voting isn't going to make the same mistake as with McDavid because of what Bedard was able to accomplish this season alone on the Chicago Blackhawks. I mean, he was already voted as an all-star. Unfortunately, he can't go to the all-star game, but he was legit their top player game in, game out. If you look at his production, 33 points, 0.85 points per game, power play, even strength production, it's there. If you look at minus 22, don't ignore that because it's just out the window. If you use that to your argument against him, I just don't know what to say. But yeah, I think that because of his dynamicism, what he's able to accomplish, and if he comes back, I think he's still probably going to get some games in to still show that, he hasn't gone away. Like he's still going to make a name for himself. But yeah, I can't see him not winning the award. I would not necessarily be surprised, but I could understand why. But I think he's still my favorite regardless. As for other names too, I mean, Tyson nailed it on the head with Brock Faber. I mean, almost 25 minutes a game.
Yeah.
Like that's absolutely insane of what he's able to accomplish. And we're not even also overshadowing the fact that Marco Rossi, Faber has tied Rossi in the same amount of games played in points with 27. Then there's Adam Fantilli, and then there's Luke Hughes, and the list
Yeah.
goes on and on. It's like, damn, this is a very impressive class. But, if the games played factor is going to come into it, Faber's healthy, Rossi's healthy, Fantilli's healthy, Hughes is healthy. Those are going to be the big names that are going to be pushing him and getting closer, and sort of like what's the kind of phrase I'm looking for? The gap is closing very,
Yeah.
very slowly, because that's how big of a lead Bedard still has with this Calder Trophy race, but they can still overtake him. There's that possibility, but
Yeah.
yeah, it's still Bedard's. I think it's still Bedard's, but the competition is creeping up very slowly.
Yeah, I mean, we already said how impressive this class is. It is not as sure of a thing as it was before.
Mhm.
I think that's what we're gonna say. Dayton, did you want to mention anyone else for rookies, or is it Faber? I mean, there's a lot of guys you could mention. Too bad Ridley Gregg, because he had a good start. Just again, injuries with him too.
Yeah. I don't know if I ever would have picked Greg to be a Calder candidate. Like he's a fantastic player, and he's having a great season when he's with the Senators, and that's great. He's not a top 3 guy
No.
in Calder voting for me. You guys mentioned all the ones that I would have. I'll just kind of point at Luke Hughes, who leads all defensemen in goals, at least rookie defensemen. And I was curious what the voting was like in 2015-16. So just to refresh everyone's memory, McDavid finished 3rd in voting, despite having 48 points in, I think it was 45 games. So he was over a point per game. But he was beat by Shane Gostisbehere, who came in 2nd, who had 46 points. So I think the magic number for defensemen is getting close to that 50.
Yeah.
If Faber can get that 50 points and Bedard sinks, or at least not sinks, doesn't play for most of the rest of the season, I think he can usurp him pretty easily. Same with Luke Hughes, who is very close with scoring to Faber. Yeah, they're separated by 3 points. Luke Hughes has 24, Faber has 27. The only thing is Luke Hughes has 8 goals, which is maybe a little bit more impressive if you're looking at, who's going to be the Calder Trophy. I think Faber is the more impressive defenseman this year. But yeah, I wouldn't count out Luke Hughes. He's doing some great things with the Devils team, who hasn't always looked great.
Yeah. Yeah, there's just a lot. Like Adam Fantilli could end up being. I mean, all these guys are gonna get votes. I mean, I'm sure. But we'll see who ends up being the winner. I think it's still Bedard's too. But he just had such a great big lead. But I could definitely see a guy like Faber creeping up on him and getting definitely this is going to be a finalist for the trophy. I think if he keeps going on like this. So very impressive rookie class, and we'll see what the rest of them can do for the rest of the season. Okay, well, let's finish our show with our prospect of the week, as we always do. And I'll start with you, Tyson. Who's your prospect of the week?
I'm going with a Minnesota Wild prospect, as I, follow them a little bit more closely than the rest. But Danila Yurov, specifically over in the KHL, has been fantastic recently. He was a point per game over this last week. He's 5 points in 5 games. But even more importantly, he got in a fight, which was fantastic to see. It was not something that you usually see from him, but he got 10, 5, and a 2 for standing up for one of his teammates, which is always something that you love to see. But 4 goals to go along with it, that makes him top for me.
Yeah, that's Yurov was I think a sneaky pick for the Minnesota Wild that draft year. They've got such a great prospect pool for being seemed like every year they make the playoffs. This year kind of tenuous, but it's impressive how much they've built a prospect pool being playoff. Like the Dallas Stars, another one. They just keep gaining prospects, good prospects, even though they keep making the playoffs. So
it makes
that's
no
a
sense,
testament.
but it's great.
Yeah, testament to the scouting staff for sure. All right, Dayton, who's your prospect of the week?
Yeah, sorry, I did cut out there. I'm a substitute teacher, so I had to take my sub call for later.
Ah,
Can't really let those just go to voicemail.
no, for
They don't
sure.
give you work for that. So apologies. I was afraid that was going to happen, but I'm also happy I got work. Hey, anyways, the guy I picked, Matthew Savoie. Most will know him from his appearance on the World Junior roster or his brief appearance with the Buffalo Sabres. But did you know that he recently got traded to the Moose Jaw Warriors? He was part of one of those big CHL trade deadline deals. And heading into that trade, he had a multi-game point streak, 9 games, without not scoring for Wenatchee. He has extended that to 13 games, and in the last 4 games with Moose Jaw, he has 10 points. He's on fire with the Warriors, and the Warriors are going to be a WHL champion contender. They'll have to get by the Blades first, who are also looking fantastic. It's going to be a really tight race. I won't say who I'm cheering for, but you can probably figure it out. Just stretch my neck there a little bit. But it's really nice to see how well Savoie is doing with his new team. He just hasn't lost a step at all.
Yeah, Savoie could probably be playing in the NHL now if he didn't get hurt there and they only played him like 2 minutes and then they send him back. He's got NHL experience, not very much. All right, Peter, finishing off with you. Who's your prospect of the week?
Yeah, someone I didn't really get a chance to talk about a whole lot when doing my rankings, but it's this is the first time in quite a long time where I'm picking at Ivan Demidov. Obviously he's had some, bad luck. He dealt with an injury, call-ups going up and down between the MHL and the KHL, not getting the ice time. But man, he's still being productive. 39 points in 22 games, but in his last 14 points in his last 5 games. That's close to 3 points per game. I mean, that's just absolutely insane what he can do with the puck, the creativity, the skill, the deceptiveness that he has in his game. It's a big reason why he's still in my top 5 and a big reason why he's going to be my prospect of the week because he just keeps producing. That's all. That's his MO right now. And that's, again, the reason why he's my prospect of the week.
Yeah, Demidov, we'll see where he falls. He was in the top 3, right? Top 3 in the midseason rankings for NHL Central Scouting. So for the European side, that is. But yeah, we'll see where he ends up being when draft comes around. Because keeps doing this, I'm sure he'll be up there. All right, my prospect of the week was going to be T. Ginla, but Dayton did a great job of going through him. So he's been impressive. Like I said, the hat trick. He has like 5 goals in his last 6 or 7 games, including that hat trick. So definitely impressive. And my weekly Hunter Brustevich update. He had 2 assists in the time between our last show and this one, and he's still tied for the OHL lead in points, or not leading anymore. He's tied with Anthony Romani of the North Bay Battalion with 69 points, but he's still on pace for that 100 points. Just needs 30 more in the next how many games are left? Quite a bit still. So I'm gonna do that. I'm gonna do an update. I'm not anyone. We'll see. Canucks fans care. I don't know who else. All right. Well, thanks, Tyson, Dayton, and Peter for joining the show again here. We're going to have next week, we're going to probably go through we'll do our CHL Top Prospects Game recap and some takeaways from that. And then we'll do we're going to go through our prospect rankings that were released. I think it's been a couple weeks now, but we'll look through that. There's a lot of great prospects on that top 100 list. So we'll take a look at that as well. But that does it for this week on the Prospect Corner. Thanks for tuning in. Make sure to subscribe to the Hockeyware's YouTube channel and where you can get all of our updates or all of our episodes so you don't miss any of them. Check out the hockeywares.com. We got tons of articles, prospect articles. We got just regular team coverage. And also check out the Substack. It's run by Dayton. Lots of great stuff there. We got the free version. You also got the premium tier with premium articles, interviews, bunch of different features throughout our draft season here as it gets ramped up. Our draft profiles and all that will be, it's still a couple months away, but look out for that. We always do some great stuff over at the Hockey Writers with our draft coverage. So lots of fun stuff coming up. We're going to do more mock drafts, lots of fun stuff. But until next time, we'll see you on another episode of Prospects Corner.